Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, you can call me nostalgic or, well, just flat out old, but there's something about getting those Maxell tapes with the handwritten liner notes that was magical and allowed you to discover artists that you had never even heard before. And you know what? I miss it. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, and we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals. We pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because let's face it, you're listening right now. And if you are, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Give us the old 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere. Places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and plus we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we'd absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on the social media. We're on the Facebook, we're on the Twitter, we're on the Instagram, we're on the Letterboxd, we're on the TikTok, and God knows we're probably at a few other places too, at In the Seats, for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because guess what? If we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, we love it even more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So do us that kindness and pay us a visit. On this episode, we are going old school. We are going back in the day with a brand new documentary, which is available on Paramount Plus as we speak right now. It's a fantastic service. Go check it out. But the documentary is called Mixtape, and it's a documentary about the role that mixtapes had in the emergence of hip hop around the world. Like before radio, before internet, before social media, there was mixtapes. And that's how music got shared, and that's how new artists got discovered, and that's how stuff went around. And it was such an influential part of the hip hop community and developing rap music. And I mean, it was a big, big deal. And if you're nostalgic for that sort of stuff, and I mean, I know I am, uh, I had the chance to sit down with not only the director of the film, the one and only Omar Acosta, but legendary DJ, the one and only Tony Touch, to talk about the legacy of the mixtape when it comes to hip hop, how putting the whole project together, and so very much more. But if you haven't already signed up for Paramount Plus, go do it now. Like I said, it's a great service, and watch Mixtape. But first, enjoy our talk with Omar and Tony, because quite frankly, it's a darn good one. All right. Well, first off, Omar, Tony, just first off, man, just thank you so much for the time to me. I really appreciate it, man. The second I saw that this was actually a project and a film, man, made my heart smile, just because, I go back in the day with the old gold Maxell tapes, man. So I just, there's part of me that really misses this, misses the art form of the mixtape.
Amazing. Thank you, man. It's very cool.
Now, I mean, Omar, I guess my first question is for you. Like, walk me through the origin of it all and wanting to make a film about the mixtape and mixtape culture and how it's evolved so much over the years.
I mean, for me, it was just something that came naturally. You know, mixtapes were such an important part of my upbringing and childhood, and it was the only way to consume the music that I was passionate about and I love. So I figured there were other people that felt the same way, so I reached out to Tony, and who was one of my inspirations and growing up. I used to cop his mixtapes when I lived in Puerto Rico. So I just sort of like naturally gravitated to the one DJ that I had a personal emotional connection with, right? Initially we had a conversation about sort of like doing something around one of his famous mixtapes, 50 MCs, which is one of my favorite mixtapes of all time. And it just evolved from there. It just kind of like took off, and we had no idea. We knew there was something there, and we just wanted to explore it further. And I think we just decided to go down that rabbit hole. And what you see now is sort of like the what came out of that, right? But that was sort of a thing that was very organic, and we just connected the dots, and and we ended up with a script, and so we decided to shoot it.
Tony, man, talk to me about your initial reactions about being sort of pitched to participate in a film like this, because I mean, something that I really appreciate about the film is that it's not just necessarily about underground music culture or anything like that. It's just it showed how quickly this turned into like a legitimate side hustle and a legitimate business, and I mean how much like the volume that was getting moved on some of
Yeah.
these tapes.
Yeah, I mean, initially the idea was to do something that was more or less centered around me, and I'm proud to have been able to share this platform with my comrades and other people that, hey, I was one element of this, but there was a lot of people that were key, players in this movement. And I told Omar, I was like, yeah, this is cool. Let's do something, but we got to get this guy involved. And then this guy mentioned, well, you guys should get this person involved. And then next thing you know, we're interviewing over 90, close to 100 people in this film.
Right.
Because there was so many people that played a part in elevating this thing. And I'm glad I got to share the platform with them.
For sure. Now, I mean, Omar, this feels like something that I can imagine you'd have like an initial script and then things would evolve and you'd ask more people and more people.
Oh, hard.
Like like when you were talking to people, I can imagine you would be getting sort of three suggestions after every interview you would do to go talk to somebody else. Like, how did you manage to sort of pare it all down?
That was incredibly hard, man. That was incredibly hard. But ultimately, it's what served the story, right? It was all right. We're making a story about mixtapes, right? We're telling the story on mixtape, and we just wanted to stick to that subject. So I think even though there were other avenues that people gave us or hinted at, that it was incredibly tempting to go down. Ultimately it's what served the story, and that to us was the most important thing.
Can you guys both talk a little bit just about, I guess, the evolution of it all? Because I mean, especially for me as a music fan growing up, it was the tactile nature of it. It was the trading tapes. It was the going, oh, you've got to tell you was so and so, and let me listen to that, and I dub that, and the whole thing. In this day and age, it feels like that kind of magic has gone, especially when it kind of evolved to CD and now to essentially playlists.
Yeah, it was important for us to give a timeline, let people know how it evolved from the beginning of someone just literally recording an event from their boombox. They weren't even plugged into the system. Somebody would just bootleg the event, sit there with their radio, stand next to a speaker, and record parties and record events and record performances. So it was great to be able to show the history of where it started, because obviously a lot of people just see it now as streaming, or maybe some of their early memories is the CD. But we went way, way back and showed how we turned something. We turned something from nothing. And how innovative we were back then. Like you said, it's like a lost art, and just to be as creative as we were, and like you said, making copies of a cassette, circulating them. I mean, this is all organic. It is an organic growth. It came from nothing.
I mean, it was PR. It was music PR before they were even conscious of it. Really, in
Yeah,
many.
marketing, all of that, marketing,
Yeah,
PR, and yeah, and distribution, and all of it. Just basically getting the music out there, and then of course the technology back then. It was easy to like make a copy of a cassette from someone, and it just spiraled.
for sure, for sure. Can you get something else that I appreciated is just how you guys involved 50 and Wayne, and just to show how the idea of the mixtape evolved. And I mean, I'm kind of curious on both your perspectives on that, because on one end, it's so fascinating to see what those guys did with it, but at the same time, at least for me as a purist, I don't consider that what guys like you, Tony, did back in the day. It feels like it's a very different beast.
It's just the way it evolved. It
Right.
evolved to that. It didn't start off that way. A lot of artists had a difficult time. Maybe they had to wait a year before they could put out music on their record label, or they wanted to put out some things that they knew they weren't going to be able to clear the music for, or whatever, for clearances and stuff. So eventually the artists saw what the DJs were doing and decided to take it upon themselves to self-promote themselves and their music, and it evolved from the DJ to artists like Lil Wayne, 50 Cent, Drake, artists making their own mixtape,
Mhm.
but they got it from us. It's part of the evolution. So I'm not mad at it. I applaud it. The fact that it's even till today it's continued to evolve.
Now, I'm curious from both your perspectives, because obviously we've seen how vinyl has had its peaks and valleys and had its resurgences, and people are still embracing the format. But I mean, I'm kind of curious, do you think there is a window to sort of reinvent the mixtape yet again? Because I mean, again, I miss the tactile nature of it. You know what I mean? I miss having something that you can hold in your hand. And it seems like in this day and age, with the music industry, we've lost sort of that tactile nature of it. Do you think there's a way we can get the mixtape back, at least in sort of some form that we used to have it back in the day?
Hmm.
I mean, not unless you're gonna go in like, VR world or something at the same you know. I mean, I personally have seen mixtapes and cassette tapes making a resurgence in the spots in, like, I was in Japan, and they got like tape stores and that sort of thing. But I don't know that what you're referring to specifically, that era that we all experienced and we love, is going to make a comeback, because the technology is not going that way. So
Right. Yeah.
And that's really what it is. The technology's somewhere else. I mean, who knows what's next, right? Like, who would have thought that we've had these digital platforms and streaming and playlists? We never would have imagined.
Right.
It has its benefits and its negatives. Now the music circulates around the planet in the blink of an eye, whereas back in the day, it used to grow organically. But there's definitely a sense of nostalgia that people gravitate to, and people like vinyl is making a comeback in a sense. More artists are pressing up vinyl on their music, and there's always people always have that need for some nostalgic elements. I don't think it'll ever be what it was, but you'll see a little bit of a resurgence of tapes and vinyl. We pressed up for the album, which is the soundtrack to the film. The album's called The Death Tape. We pressed up some cassettes and we pressed up some albums, so it makes it feel special.
Would it be fair to say that because the mixtape historically has been referred to, like in rap music and the hip hop culture, like, would it be sort of the same equivalent to sort of, back in the day trading, Grateful Dead bootlegs and sort of Bob Dylan bootlegs? It feels like it's an evolution therein.
Oh,
Either way, yeah, please.
I mean, because conceptually, I mean, I can't speak to that specifically, but conceptually, it feels like it's the same thing. But I think you're talking about albums, and I feel like with mixtapes, you really had to go and find them, and then you also had to really trust that DJ, because I remember when I was when I was looking for mixtapes, there were many times where DJs didn't even have they didn't have the playlist in the back. They wouldn't write it down. You have people like Jibo the Pro, and Double R, like writing things down. It got to that level, and even Tone started doing graffitis and stuff like that. But I remember and then he would write it and give shout outs and stuff, and I remember reading all that. But there were times when there was this DJ in Puerto Rico. He's still around. His name is Playero. And when I was a kid, I would stop him, and it's whatever he had. Like I would stop his car, and I was like 12 years old, and it's whatever he had. You got tape, yeah, here. It's because I knew the name, I knew the guy, and I knew that he had an ear. You had to trust that DJ. Here's your $5, and then you go home, and you're like, oh wow, he did this, now and now you're up on the tracks, I remember once I got Tony Touch tape that he blended Mary J. Blige with, what's that Gangstar track? Anyway, he blended this Mary J. joint with a Gangstar track off the bat. I was like, I thought it was the most genius thing I ever heard, but I didn't read it. It was a surprise, and I think that shock factor was like, oh, it got you excited. So it was about going back to what I'm saying. I think at that time it was also about really trusting that DJ.
Well, and it's trusting the DJ and trusting the tastemaker. I mean, at the end of the day, for both of you, is the mixtape, or is sort of that trust we used to have in guys like you, Tony, and the DJ, has that been lost, or has it just sort of been repackaged? I'm kind of curious on your thoughts on that.
It's funny because during the pandemic, the DJ became sort of in the forefront again, right? Because you had
Yeah,
all these DJ streaming. So a lot of DJs, came up during the pandemic with the live streaming, and it reinvented the wheel a little bit,
Yeah.
and shout out to like guys like D Nice and myself, and all these other DJs that were live streaming. We got the attention was back on us again, because for a long time, and the hip hop culture, the attention's on the rapper, and the person in the front holding the mic, but
yeah.
DJs in the background and things like that. But yeah, during the pandemic, it's like we came up again, and all eyes are on us. And now with this film, with just this total story about the DJ, and giving the DJ his just due and his props and his recognition.
Absolutely, man. I agree with you on that 100%.
Yeah.
But I mean, guys, just thank you so much for the time. And I mean, just shining a bit of light on the art of the tastemaker, the art of the DJ. And I mean, like you guys say, the technology is always going to evolve and change, but the music's going to be there. And the guys who know how to get it to the people are going to be there. And just thank you again for sharing what really is, in my mind, such a vital piece of music history and sort of present as well as it evolves and keeps going. But guys, man, congrats on the film and thank you for the time today.
Thank you, man. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks again. All right. And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.